Hello everybody, welcome to Every Movie Ever. I'm your host, Eric Houston. This is, of course, the show where we're trying to review every movie ever made. I'm trying to do that with the help of my crew, with Ben and Alex and Gavin. I got to start with movie number 46. This is Midnight Madness. This is an obscure 80s Disney live-action movie. I caught it on Turner Classic Movies Disney Vault Night, one of my favorite nights on cable television. I loved this movie. This is a movie where four groups of pretty stereotypical teams, including a very young Michael J. Fox, compete in an all-night scavenger hunt masterminded by Leon, who sends these teams all across Hollywood, all across LA, looking for these wacky and weird clues. There is so much to love about this movie, so many weird and wacky characters. I don't understand why this movie isn't better known. It had my heart from the start. A special shout out to the character of Melio, who spends the whole movie trying to ruin everything for his best friend. It's weird, it's wacky, it's a 4-star movie. Another movie caught on Turner Classics for one of those Disney nights, Follow Me Boys. This is a movie from the 50s. It stars Fred MacMurray as a jazz musician who decides to settle down in a small town and become a Boy Scout leader. This one stars a young Kurt Russell. It's a very sort of treacly movie, a very sort of cliched and sweet movie, but you know what? It's one where the cliches work for the most part. The movie's overlong. There's a point at which the movie should probably have ended, and then it goes for another 20 minutes with a couple of scenes that involve the U.S. Army that don't make any sense. But all the parts with Fred MacMurray and Kurt Russell and putting together this Boy Scout troop are really heartfelt and very nice. A little simplistic, a little cliched, like I said, but still a pretty enjoyable movie. 3 stars. Up next, A Shot in the Dark. This is the second of the classic Blake Edwards, Peter Sellers Pink Panther movies. This one it might be the best of them. It's the one that most toes the line between the classiness of the original Pink Panther movie and the wackiness of the later entries. Sellers is terrific in this. Lots of great physical comedy. A lot of really fun set pieces, particularly the nudist colony sequence. Is it a great movie? No, but it's a pretty fun time. It does drag in places. As always, big shout outs to Burt Kwok as Kato and Herbert Lom as the chief of police, whose slow burn frustration with Clouseau is always one of the best parts of these movies. 3.5 stars. Decided to check something out new next. That's Inferno. This is the Tom Hanks movie, the third in the Da Vinci Code series, where Tom Hanks is back as whatever his character's name is. I didn't see the first two. He's back this time, though, with Felicity Jones from Rogue One and A Theory of Everything, and they're trying to stop a bioweapon, I guess, and they have to solve clues to figure things out, but the clues don't ever make any sense, and they don't seem like they really lead from one thing to the other. It's a kind of a confused, jarbled movie. Even Hanks' charisma doesn't really save this one. 2 stars. After a disappointment like Inferno, you gotta come back hard. I did that by rewatching The King's Speech. This is the story of King George the something or other. I don't know. This is the one where Colin Farrell, that's not his name, it's Colin Firth. Colin Firth is the King of England. He's a guy who was never supposed to be king. His dad dies, and then his older brother abdicates the throne, and he's got to be king, but he's got a speech impediment. So he goes to Geoffrey Rush, who helps him learn to overcome his speech impediment. Maybe that doesn't sound like a great movie, but this one really is. It's beautifully acted and directed. It's so compelling, so easy to watch. It's a great, great movie about people. 5 stars. Another knock out of the park is The Grand Budapest Hotel. This has got to be my favorite Wes Anderson movie. Wes Anderson, he can get a little bit too twee, if that's a word. I think it is. A little too hipstery, but Grand Budapest Hotel, he's firing on all cylinders. Ralph Fiennes is fantastic as the concierge, as Gustav H., who with his trusted lobby boy have to try and smuggle a painting. It's a beautiful movie. It's an incredibly well acted and funny movie. Very reminiscent, for me at least, of Ernst Lubitsch movies like The Shop Around the Corner. This one is a treat, a confection, a delight. I loved it. A small quibble is the sort of Russian nesting doll-ness of the movie, where it's a story where the movie is being told by a guy and that's being told by another guy and another guy. That part I'm not as sold on, but that's a nitpick. This is a great movie, great cast, great, but 4.5 stars. Captain Fantastic is one of the more recent, I don't know if it's an indie darling, but it's an indie movie that people seem to like. This one's about Viggo Mortensen. Viggo's raising his family of, 5 or 6 kids out in the woods. They're like Nietzscheans or something. They decide that their mom dies in, the rest of the world. And so they come out of the woods to attend her funeral. Grandpa Frank Langella doesn't like it. There's a lot of culture clashing here, where these kids who have been raised with sort of a utopian society idea come to our flawed American society. This one, it's got its charms, but ultimately I thought it was a little bit too preachy. It sort of rests on some straw man arguments about how our society is flawed and these kids know the right way, but maybe they don't. It's a movie that seems like it has arguments and ideas, but it's not making them particularly well, and really seems kind of cocky, to be honest with you. I couldn't really get into it. 2 stars. Remember a few movies ago we were watching stuff on Turner Classics for Disney Vault Night? Here's another one. This one's called The Hound That Thought He Was a Raccoon. Now, fasten your seatbelts, take off your hats, get ready. This is a movie that's about a hound. He thinks he's a raccoon. This is a live-action featurette. A hound pup ends up being raised by a raccoon. It's a lot of nature footage. It's all right. It never quite comes together. Kind of fun. 2 stars. Love at First Glance. This is one of them Hallmark Channel movies. The wife and I were big fans of the Hallmark Christmas movies. They're kind of dumb, but that can be a fun thing. You know me by now. 3 episodes in, I watched a lot of bad movies. So this was a Valentine's Day Hallmark movie that starred Adrian Grenier, the Vinny from Entourage. So you get to watch the whole movie being like, oh, this is a movie Vinny's making when he's down on his luck. Here's the thing about this movie. Usually these movies, they're not great. They can be fun to chat through or make fun of or whatever. This might be the worst movie I have ever seen. Amy Smart, I believe, is the name of the lead. She is a journalist who is assigned the daunting task of writing an article about what is love. She meets Adrian Grenier on a train after a marriage proposal to her boyfriend backfires. She falls in love with Adrian Grenier, I guess at first glance. Finds his phone on the subway. They never talk, folks. There's some texting. She's like, well, maybe I should look into your past. And he's like, do it. I don't care. And so she goes into his phone, finds his contacts, start meeting people. It is like Grenier is Jesus Christ in this movie, folks. Everybody loves him. There's this never-ending series of stories about what a great guy he is, but these stories become weirder and weirder, including a story that's being told by the husband of his ex-girlfriend who had gotten amnesia and forgot he ever existed. It is terrible. Amy Smart, of course, falls in love with this guy over the course of all of this. None of it is believable. None of it is viable. It's all real condescending, vaguely insulting, and vaguely anti-feminist. I'm only giving this a 0.5 star. Classic movie times, folks. I love classic movies. Haven't been able to watch much of them for this show yet, but I want to tell you about The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer. Thought this one would be great. Cary Grant, Myrna Loy maybe my favorite actress. Cary Grant up there on the actor roles. And Shirley Temple, a teenaged Shirley Temple, is, so Myrna Loy is a judge. Shirley Temple is her sister. They don't have parents. I don't know why. Shirley Temple sees Cary Grant lecture somewhere, falls in love with him, and Myrna Loy, for reasons that don't make a lot of sense, sentenced Cary Grant to dating her sister, so her sister realizes that Cary Grant is too old and not the man for her. It's pretty weird. It never really comes together in that screwball comedy way you want it to. Now that said, there are parts of it that are enjoyable, but there's also a lot of dead parts. 2 stars on this one. Oh, folks. So I recently, finally, after years of thinking about it, sat down to watch 1941, the Steven Spielberg bomb of a movie that's about Los Angeles right after Pearl Harbor and everybody going nuts that they think the Japanese are going to attack. But I guess they're not going nuts because there's a Japanese sub in the harbor. being helmed by Christopher Lee and Toshiro Mifune, two of the great actors of all time. Everybody's in this movie. Dan Aykroyd's in it. Jim Belushi's in it. John Belushi is in it, not Jim Belushi. What's his name from Animal House? Otter. There's a bunch of great actors in this movie. Robert Stack is in it. It is terrible, folks. It is so bad. This movie is a misfire in every way. Perhaps if it had been a semi-drama, it could have worked. But the sense of humor in this so-called comedy is so weird and often vaguely racist that it's completely off-putting. I can't recommend this movie. It's really bad. Gavin, how many stars did I give this again?
1.
1 star. Might have been too many, but 1 star. Avoid. Let's keep this streak of disappointing movies going, this time with Funny Face. We're going to come to this one in a little bit of a roundabout way, folks. I'm a fan of Supergirl on the CW. I think it's a great show. In a recent episode, Supergirl, as you know, she's dating Mon-El from Daxam, right? And she's trying to teach Mon-El about what it's like to live on Earth, and they're watching romantic comedies and musicals, and she says, hey, we should watch Funny Face with Audrey Hepburn and Fred Astaire. It's great. I immediately go to my cable box, search for this movie. It's going to be on. I record it. I watch it. It ain't great. It ain't great, folks. This is a movie where Fred Astaire, who barely dances in this thing, he gets like 1 dance set piece. He is a photographer for a fashion magazine. He convinces the fashion magazine to hire intellectual Audrey Hepburn to be a model. And then they fall in love. They're 30 years apart, folks. It doesn't work. It does not work. The songs are not memorable. The dances are weak. And this is a movie from the director of Singin' in the Rain. Came out years after Singin' in the Rain. You'd think he'd bring some of that innovation to this movie. No. This is a very by-the-numbers affair that is vaguely creepy throughout. There's some charm from the leads, but not a lot. 2 stars. You gotta wash out the palate after some disappointments like that. You gotta go back to an old favorite. For me this time it was 21 Jump Street, the updating of the 80s detective show from a few years ago, Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. Who would have thought these two would be such a great comedy team? But they are. This one's entertaining as all heck, with a lot of great metatextual touches about how it's a movie about a TV show and stuff. This one's a treat to watch. Some good action, great comedy, 3.5 stars. So after 21 Jump Street, it was time to head back into the bad movie mine. This time, for one of the podcasts I listened to, I had to watch Sleepwalkers. This is the only movie that Stephen King wrote and which was not previously a Stephen King novel. This is a Stephen King original screenplay. This had all the markings of being a bad movie, and folks, it is. It's a bad movie. It's a pretty bad movie. This is a movie about the sleepwalkers who are cat people vampire types who feed on the life essence of virgins, and they come into this small town in Indiana, and they set their sights on one of them, this young girl, and they go after her. The main characters in this movie, folks, though, are the cat people. The bad guys are the main characters. Are they sympathetic? Not at all. They kill a bunch of people. Also weird, they're cat people, right? Who are their arch enemies? Cats, regular cats. Cats hang around their house, try to bite them, try to scratch them. If you get scratched by a cat and you're a sleepwalker, you die. This is a bad movie, but folks, I loved it. I loved it so much. This was the best bad movie I have seen in a dog's age. I can't recommend it enough. It never works, but when it doesn't, it is hilarious. Lots of shots of dudes with cats grabbing onto their head, but they're obviously fake cats. Guys yelling at cats. Plot stuff that makes no sense, but it moves. It moves. And that guy that's the interior decorator from Beetlejuice, you get to see him get his hand ripped off. A ton of weird cameos. Mark Hamill's in this movie. John Landis, Joe Dante have cameos. King has a very weird and very long cameo. I thought it was hilarious. Doesn't mean to be, no, but man, is it a fun time. Normally, I can't give a movie like this more than like 2.5 stars, but I love this one so much, giving it 3. Now, folks, right now as we tape this, Ghost in the Shell is in the theaters. This is the new Scarlett Johansson, sci-fi beat-em-up movie. I don't know if I guess I'm excited about it. I'd like to see it. But of course, it made me say to myself, You know what? We've never bothered to watch that anime it's based off of, that big revolutionary, everybody loves it, early mid-90s anime movie. It was on Stars. I said, this time I'm going to sit down and watch this sucker. Have I ever watched a full anime movie before? I don't think I have. They're not for me. I'm sorry, I've tried. So I tried again with Ghost in the Shell. Everybody says it's so great. It's nice to look at. The plot makes no sense. I'm very confused by what's going on. It's no great shakes. I'm sorry. 2.5 stars. You know what is a surprisingly good movie? The Finest Hours. This came out last year, I think. And it's Chris Pine, who is not the world's greatest Captain Kirk over in the new Star Trek movies. He's I don't know, Coast Guard guy or whatever out in, I don't know, New England, right? And a freighter is in trouble. He's got to go out and save it. So the movie's split between Chris Pine's efforts and the freighter's efforts. The freighter, which is split in half, ends up under the command of Casey Affleck after everybody else has died. It's a pretty entertaining movie. It's pretty entertaining. Real high stakes. There's a huge storm. They send Chris Pine out with like 2 guys in this dinky little boat to save all these guys from this freighter. You wouldn't think it'd be that great, but it's pretty fun. It's a pretty good affair. 3 stars. The Trust started out all right. This is a Nick Cage movie. This one with Elijah Wood, where they stumble upon like a vault full of stuff that they want to steal. Nick Cage, for the first few minutes of this movie, is at peak insanity, but it never quite holds up. It's okay. 2 stars. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, latest Star Wars movie. This is the first of those anthology movies. This one about the team that steals the plans of the Death Star. Stars Felicity Jones as Jyn Erso, who's tasked with stealing the plans. I really liked it. It's really good. Fun characters, fun action, fun time. It's about as good as Force Awakens, probably. It's pretty good stuff. I liked it quite a bit. Very cool moments. Looking forward to watching it again. 3.5 stars. Saving Christmas, meanwhile, is another one of those worst movies I've ever seen types. This one's Kirk Cameron sits around and tells us about how not really how Christmas needs saving. That might have been something. This is all about him convincing his friend that the materialism of Christmas is good. Now, I'm not going to come out and say the materialism of Christmas isn't good. I don't really care one way or the other, to be completely honest with you. This movie really tries hard to make the case that no, this is the way to go. I don't know, there's a lot of weird arguments in it. There's no plot, there's no characters, there's just arguments about things. It sucks. 0.5 star. Grease 2, also really bad. I don't really like Grease. I like Grease 2 even less. Weird movie, weird songs, nothing works. Don't understand it. 0.5 star. 9 Lives, this is the movie where Kevin Spacey slips into a coma and he wakes up and he's a cat because Christopher Walken made him a cat because that'll teach him to be a better man or whatever. It's pretty dumb. It's pretty dumb. 1 star. Heavyweights, rewatched this one recently, a favorite from my childhood, about kids that get sent to a weight loss camp. The kids are great. This is a funny movie, man. It's a really good time. You should see it. It's a 90s Disney movie. Seems like it wouldn't be that great, but there's something about it that takes it to the next level. Part of that is Ben Stiller as the evil head camp counselor, playing pretty much the same character from Dodgeball. This is a fun one. Go out and see it. You won't regret it. 3 stars. The Lawnmower Man. It's a legendarily bad movie. Finally saw it. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I don't even feel like I can describe this one without it being kind of offensive. It's kind of an offensive movie about a guy. It's like okay, here we go. It's like Flowers for Algernon, but on the internet. He gets sucked. He can go into the internet and cyberspace and virtual reality and kill people. 1 star. Speaking of legendarily bad, let's talk about Vampire's Kiss. This is the 80s Nick Cage movie where he thinks he's become a vampire, but he hasn't actually. Outside of the part where he bizarrely recites the alphabet, I didn't like it. I understand why people think it's a cult classic. Not for me. 1 star. The Gallows. We're in a real streak of bad movies here, folks. The Gallows. This is a found footage movie about some kids at a high school who break into the high school because they want to stop a play that's about the Salem witch trials for happening, but there's a ghost or something. 1 star. Gamer, this is the movie where Gerard Butler is sentenced to being a video game character in a future dystopia. You'd think this one would be kind of fun, but it's really gross. This is a gross movie. It's grimy and dirty and disgusting on every level. Half a star. Doctor Strange, meanwhile, the new Marvel movie about the Sorcerer Supreme. It's not the best Marvel movie, but it ain't the worst. Pretty middle of the road, but a good time at the movies. Some stuff really works, some stuff's a little so-so. Yeah, it's a fun time. 3 stars. Back to the bad movies with the Lazarus Effect. This one stars, what's his name, Duplass, and Olivia Wilde. They've come up with a serum that can bring back the dead. Does it go badly? Of course it goes badly. Donald Glover's also in this movie. This is another one that just doesn't work. It's got a couple of weird twists and a bummer ending, but it's not anything you want to see. 1 star. Dreamcatcher's another Stephen King adaptation. This one about a book that King famously does not remember writing because he was high on the cocaine. That's what he says anyway, I think, allegedly. Let's throw an allegedly on there. In any event, I don't know what to tell you about this movie. It's kind of about 5 friends stopping an alien invasion. It is not terrific, but it's got some funny stuff in it, unintentionally so. I'm on the fence on if you should see this one or not. 1.5 stars. Let's end. These movies are so bad today, folks. We had some good ones at the start. I don't know where they went. I don't know what I was thinking when I watched this string of movies, folks. But let's get out of here with our last movie, Victor Frankenstein. This is another retelling of the Frankenstein saga. This one is with James McAvoy as Victor Frankenstein, who makes friends with Igor, played by Daniel Radcliffe, by fixing his humpback. I don't know what to tell you about this one, folks. It's got a couple of ideas. They don't work. This is nobody's favorite Frankenstein movie. I don't think it'll be yours either. Let's give it 1.5 stars and go home. We'll come back next time, try to review some more movies. I hope they're better. I think they will be, and we'll have a good time then. Thanks, everybody. Good night.